Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to Issues Unite. All right, so today are the midterm elections. And honestly, I am genuinely going to say that this does stand to be one of the most important elections for many years, at the very least, possibly one of the most important elections in U.S. history that is an actual possibility in many different respects. That said, I'm actually going to say I'm kind of neutral on this election. I just finished voting, and here in Alabama, there isn't much of a choice. I'm not going to tell you how I voted, but there isn't much of a choice. There were very few Democrats on the ballot, no independents, no Green Party. Most of the choices came down to Republican or Libertarian. Gee, there's a choice. Anyway, so here in Alabama, there's just not much of a choice. And so some of the things making this the most important election, right now, concerns of Americans that are polled, something like 79% of Americans, think that the most important issue is the economy. I'm going to say, okay, the Democrats are taking the hit, taking the blame, for good reason, for the economy being in the state that it is in, with the sanctions on Russia that have driven up gas and oil prices and so forth. That has had a downstream effect on everything that you're buying. This is not a question. And yet, when you hear the Democrats talking, all they're talking about is Ukraine and sending more. They just sent another $400 million to Ukraine. Most Americans are against all of this money and all of this going to Ukraine and propping up the military-industrial complex while Americans are suffering. The Democrats, if they talk about the economy, they don't have any solid plans for improving it. Now, likewise, the Republicans are against and say that they will reduce the amount of money being sent to Ukraine. And they say, we're sending all this money to Ukraine, instead of spending it on our own people. Republicans are not exactly known for spending money on our own people. Except for the wealthy, give the wealthy a tax break. Roe versus Wade is an important issue, but does anyone actually believe that the Democrats are going to codify Roe into law? They've had 50 years to do this. Roe versus Wade was a part of Obama's platform when he ran for president. Then, after he got elected, with a Democrat majority House and a filibuster-proof Senate, he said it's not a priority. Subsequently, Nancy Pelosi said, well, we didn't have enough Democrats that are pro-life or pro-choice to attempt to pass it. What? What has changed since then? Are there enough now? That because they haven't tried, they have control. They've had control of the House and the Senate and the White House, just as Obama had control the Democrats had the House, the Senate, and the White House. Manchin is still in office. Sinema is still in office. Is there any chance that they're going to try this? No. The answer is no. They won't try. There are no plans to, viable plans to improve the economy. There is no chance that Roe versus Wade is going to be codified into law if the Democrats win the majority again, which right now polls are showing that the Democrats are most likely to lose the majority. The Republicans are going to take the majority. There has been a lot of talk about transgender rights, which I'm absolutely in favor of LGBTQ, transgender rights, etc. I'm very much in favor of that. But when we look at this, how big of a concern is this to the majority of Americans? Compared to the economy, compared to the risk of a nuclear confrontation with multiple nuclear powers, Russia and China, even Pakistan, North Korea. How much of a concern are transgender rights put in perspective? If you're ranking things, it directly affects far less than 1% of the population. So if you're voting based on that, it's not likely to be a big concern. That I don't think many people are walking into a voting booth with that in mind. Even people that are in favor of transgender rights, many have concerns about bathrooms and so forth. As far as I'm concerned, we shouldn't even have to have separate bathrooms at all. But, in some countries, men and women do not have separate bathrooms. And the, events that happen in bathrooms in those countries are virtually non-existent. They're virtually non-existent here. I don't care. I'm not looking at anybody when they use the bathroom. So I don't care if, a person in transition comes into the men's room. Okay, go. There you go. I really don't care. Yeah, if a transgender man goes into the women's room, he's going into a stall to use the toilet. He's not flashing. If you can find any stories of this, most of the time those stories have been debunked. So I don't think many Americans are really voting based on that. Gay rights are an issue. Gay marriage is absolutely an issue. And that is someplace where the Democrats hold a definite advantage. And many people will vote based on that, yes. The fact is, though, that the entire world, other countries, are watching this election very closely. Yeah, especially in Europe and Russia and Ukraine. They're definitely watching this election very closely, because this election can change things. If the Republicans reduce or stop sending aid to Ukraine, then this could actually be, would most likely actually be the path to peace, a peace process. I find it interesting that Jake Sullivan went to Ukraine, allegedly to meet with Zelensky, although I don't actually believe Zelensky is in Ukraine. I really don't. Every video that I've seen of him has been green screened. There are absolute... Anybody that has ever done a green screen, which I have, knows how to tell the telltale signs of a green screen being used. And he has absolutely been in front of a green screen for virtually every video that I've seen. So, but he meets with Zelensky, and apparently what he says is, for Zelensky to act like he's ready to negotiate, although to not actually negotiate, just so Zelensky would have continued support from Western countries, because Western countries, especially European countries, are not in favor of continuing the support for Ukraine if there is no effort at a peace process. So, if that support, if that money gets cut off, then it could lead to a peace process. And no matter what the Western media is telling you, American media is telling you, there are massive protests going on across Europe to stop sending all this support to Ukraine. They're protesting their own governments that are acting against the will of the people openly. They want to end the support for Ukraine. Many protesters are saying to get out of NATO. They want their countries getting out of NATO. It is time for NATO to dissolve. It really is. NATO is not a peaceful or defensive organization. It is an aggressive, warmongering organization. It does far more harm than good. Many of the European protesters want the Nord Stream pipelines reopened, so to end the sanctions on Russian gas. Will that happen? We don't know. Only time will tell. So the Republicans, while they're talking about ending the support, the financial support going to Ukraine, what they have not talked about is ending the sanctions. However, it doesn't have, the United States does not have to end the sanctions. This could be a domino effect. If we stop or reduce the amount of aid going to Ukraine, then European countries, and it winds up with a peace process, then European countries are most likely going to lift their own sanctions if there is any form of peace process that happens. It doesn't matter whether Ukraine loses the 4 territories or whatever. If there is some kind of a peace process that results, negotiations that end this conflict, then it is most likely that European countries are going to lift the sanctions on Russian gas, at least for now, They're probably still going to move away from Russian energy, but it will be a process that takes years instead of an immediate cessation. And the result of that will be that the price on oil and gas energy internationally, globally, will be reduced. Europeans do not want to be paying 400% more for their energy right now. They are in terror that they are going to freeze to death this winter. A lot of European countries are talking about possible blackouts, communications blackouts, setting up warming centers, which, okay, you've got an apartment, but you can't heat it, so you got to go to a warming center. Why? Because of sanctions. What are these warming centers going to be like? Are there going to be beds? Or are you just going to sit up all night in a chair? So, would you want to do this? Warm up and what? And then go back to your freezing apartment? This is unacceptable. Anyway, let's wait and see what the midterms wind up being. The polls have shown, again, that the Republicans are likely to take the majority of at least the House or the Senate, possibly both. So where we go from here, who knows? Neither party has any plans, any solid plans for anything except their own power. That's all that matters. That's the only thing that is actually on the ballot right now. That or a confrontation with nuclear powers. Our rights are being stripped away, no matter who is in power. So let's wait and see what tomorrow brings. All right? Share this video. Talk about these subjects. If you can afford it, please donate whatever you can to help expand this channel and my presidential campaign. And I will catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.